Alcohol abuse has destroyed lives, broken families, and disrupted communities across the country. Harold R. Johnson is a former Crown prosecutor and member of the Montreal Lake Cree Nation in northern Saskatchewan, and he's seen enough. His book, Firewater, How Alcohol is Killing My People and Yours, is a call to action to put a stop to the devastation, and we're pleased that it brings Harold R. Johnson to our studio tonight. Great to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Stephen.
And we are really very honored that you flew all the way from Saskatchewan to the capital city of Ontario to do this program. So thank you for that. I'd like to know why you wrote this book.
A whole bunch of different reasons. I was on a vision quest, and when I came down off the mountain, the man who started me on the Red Path journey told me to get to work. I didn't know what he meant. What can I do? I write books, so write a book. What about? Well, obviously alcohol. At the same time, a younger brother gets killed by a drunk driver. And I've got a little slight PTSD from looking at too many horrible files caused by alcohol.
From your time as a Crown.
Yeah.
Thus the book. I want to read an excerpt of it now. I am about to drag this filthy, stinking subject out into the light where everyone can see it. It is my hope that the light kills it. I am going to speak without being asked because no one else is speaking, and the silence needs to be broken. Why, in your view, are so few people, or even nobody, as you suggest, speaking about this subject?
I was wrong. I said in Firewater that white people can't talk about Indians and alcohol because they're scared people will point at them and call them racists. And Indians don't want to talk about it because they're scared people will point at them and say, see, it's true, they are lazy, dirty, drunken Indians. And I was wrong. Since Firewater came out, I've given 90 presentations in all sorts of communities across northern Saskatchewan, Western Canada. People want to talk about it. People want to make change.
Time to break the silence?
Something has happened. The floodgates have opened.
You are nothing if not candid in this book about the impact alcohol has had on your lives, on your life, and the lives of so many people around you. I know you don't drink anymore, but you did once upon a time.
I did.
How would you describe your relationship with alcohol back in the day?
By the time I was 20, I had never seen an adult who was sober. I came of age I joined the Canadian Navy at 17. Beer was 25 cents a bottle. Hard liquor was 15 cents an ounce. The Navy in my day was all about drinking. I get out of the Navy and I went working, logging and mining, and I'm in the camps in the late 70s, early 80s, and it was wide open.
I have to say, sir, you've had a life. You've done a dozen different jobs. You've been all over the place. You really have. But alcohol was always a part of it once upon a time, right?
Yeah, it was just natural, normal, and maybe even necessary.
I do have to ask the question, which is alcohol, in your view, a bigger problem for Indigenous people than it is for everybody else?
Anything that happens in the white world, when it gets into the Aboriginal world, is magnified. So smallpox is a white disease, but look what it did to us. HIV/AIDS came from the Western world. It gets into the Aboriginal community and it explodes. Same thing happened with alcohol. And fentanyl is coming.
Is it there yet?
It's knocking on the door.
It's knocking on the door. You say in the book that 50% of the deaths that you experienced in your career as a Crown prosecutor, there's an alcohol connection. 50%, truly?
That's the number that I came up with, and it's based on a report from northern Saskatchewan that said the leading cause of death is injury at 24.3%. Injury is car accidents, skidoo accidents, drowning, stabbing, shootings, beatings, house fires, suicide, freezing to death, and we know that's all alcohol. Second leading cause of death is heart disease at 23%, and we know that binge drinking damages the heart, and all those guys I used to party with who didn't shut it down are now falling over dead of heart attacks. Third leading cause of death at 21% is cancer, and we know that alcohol causes all forms of cancers: throat, liver, pancreatitis. We know that if a woman has one drink a day, she substantially increases her risk of breast cancer. Add to that children who don't get proper nutrition when they're young because their parents are drinking and have shortened lives. We know alcohol causes over 200 illnesses and injuries. People who drink too much have what's called failure to thrive because they damage their immune systems. Add FASD people and
What's FASD?
fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, and they're shortened life expectancy because of their injuries. I put those numbers together and I come to 1 and 2. I haven't been able to find any evidence to prove me wrong. I'm hoping it is. I was in a community in northern Saskatchewan giving a presentation on Firewater, and a minister stood up. This is a community of 800. A minister stands up and said, in 2015, we had 66 funerals here. 60 of them were because of alcohol. I've heard chiefs from the extreme north communities in Saskatchewan say that 90% of the deaths are related to alcohol. So I hope I'm wrong.
But you don't think you are?
It's probably higher than 50.
In your judgment, is there any amount of alcohol that is safe to drink?
There is no safe limit.
None.
None.
So we should all abstain.
Or at least abide by the low-risk drinking guidelines.
Here's another excerpt from the book. We have moral codes for a reason. We have ethics and inhibitions that help us live together. We don't normally shout and yell and raise hell because we know it disrupts our communities and our families. Normally, we behave as good people, living together with other good people. We have internal rules and taboos that help us to behave. Our inhibitions are there for a reason. Then we drink alcohol. You've just told us you don't think there is essentially a safe amount of alcohol to drink. How much alcohol intake, in your experience, does it take for us to lose our inhibitions and make bad decisions?
You can make a bad decision after one.
After one drink?
Sure. You look at your wife's best friend and think that it would be a good idea to have sex with her, and then you destroy your marriage and your children's future. It's that easy. 2 drinks and get in your car and kill somebody.
Take us back. Treaty 6, going back a couple of hundred years now, more than a couple of hundred years. Tell us about the alcohol deal that was part of Treaty 6.
So 1875, Canada's coming across the prairie, putting in telegraph lines, and they're met by the Cree. And the Cree say, get off our land and don't come back until we have a treaty. Canada can't do anything because the Cree are the most powerful military force there. So they sent George MacDougall, a missionary, to come talk to us. George does a good job. He travels to all the camps that winter, talks to the chiefs and the headmen, and we send a message back to the treaty commissioner, and through George MacDougall, and the message is, we want to have a treaty with you, and here's the things we want in the treaty. And one of the things on the list we asked for was a ban on alcohol. We said, when we see it, we drink it, and it destroys us. If we don't see it, we don't think about it. 1876, we negotiate Treaty 6 at Forts Carleton and Fort Pitt. During the negotiations, my ancestors went into caucus, took the interpreter with them. When they came back to the negotiations, they had a written list of demands because we know Kitchewamanawak only understands things in writing. And on that list of demands...
Sorry, you used an Indigenous word there which you need to translate.
Kitchewamanawak means...
Your white cousins, basically, isn't it? Yeah.
But it's a unique word. It means all of us are related to all of you. So it's doubly plural. And we became relatives through the ceremony of treaty, which was an adoption ceremony. We come back to the negotiations with this written list of demands, again asking for a ban on alcohol. It's written into our treaty that the Queen's Indian children shall be protected from the evil influences of alcohol throughout the tract ceded, and no intoxicating liquor shall be allowed on reserve.
And so it stayed until
1960.
Our courts overturned it.
Yes.
Why did our courts overturn it?
There was a case out of the Northwest Territories, R versus Dry Bones. We had just passed the Canadian Bill of Rights. Seemed like the Supreme Court wanted to exercise that.
This is the Bill of Rights, not the Charter. This is
the Bill of Rights.
John Diefenbaker's Bill of Rights.
Diefenbaker's, yes. They picked a case out of the Northwest Territories. Dry Bones had been arrested for being intoxicated off reserve and given a $10 fine. It makes its way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court determines that Aboriginal people have a human right to drink. They don't check with us, they don't consult with us, they don't look at the treaties or the negotiations.
And as a result of that, alcohol is now permitted on reserve. And is it your view that that decision opened the floodgates?
what I was told, when I started into this journey, an elder gave me a call. He said, Harold, I have to talk to you. So I go to see him. And he wants to tell me the history of drinking in my territory. He said in the 1940s, 1950s, there was some drinking. Sometimes an Indian would sell his treaty rights so they could legally go in the bar. And sometimes other Indians would ask them to pull beer for them. But it was a sometimes thing. He said it changed in 1966 with the opening of the Angleroon mine. And the miners came to town and had a party on the reserve 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with night shift miners replacing day shift miners. And the entire purpose was to get Indian women drunk. There was another party going on in the town at the other end, the smoke jumpers, people who jumped out of airplanes to fight forest fires. They had a party, and again, they only invited Aboriginal women. There was a third group of people coming, American tourists. The airport used to be filled with small planes, rich Americans flying in to go fishing, and they didn't bring their families with them. But they were the ones where everybody remembers the hard liquor came from, the vodka, the whiskey, the rum. And they too preyed on Aboriginal women. Seems like if you want to destroy a people, you attack the woman first.
I hear you. However, is it reasonable in the 21st century to say we're going to have one set of laws about alcohol for, quote unquote, your white cousins, and another set of laws about alcohol for Indigenous people? Can that be done?
Yeah.
I mean, I know it was that way before 1960, but you think that could be done again today?
We're trying to do it. When the law changed, when the Supreme Court changed the law, the Indian Act was amended, and there a provision was made for a band to pass a bylaw prohibiting alcohol. It's strictly confined to the Indian Act, but it can be done. And several of the reserves in Saskatchewan are dry. It's not working. The dry reserves have maybe more damage from alcohol than reserves that aren't dry.
Because people are going to sneak booze in. They have from time immemorial. I mean, even in our society, we had prohibition, which did not work. So what makes you think this can work?
People want to live in safe, peaceful, just communities. And without alcohol, they can have that. Maybe what's needed is managed alcohol programs. So in a dry community, you'd have something like a beer garden that's open for a few hours a day, so it serves only low alcohol beer, so that people who need alcohol for medicine can have it. And that's what we're using it as. Alcohol is a medicine. The problem with prohibition, if we take it away, the traumas that people have experienced won't be medicated. And they're using alcohol to medicate trauma.
I know you have numbers in the book that relate to the province of Saskatchewan, but I'm going to share some numbers now that relate to the province of Ontario, where we are right now. The government of Ontario realizes $2 billion a year in revenues from the Liquor Control Board of Ontario sales. LCBO, of course, has the monopoly on selling hard spirits, etc. How do you tell a government, I don't care how much money you're making from this, money, incidentally, that goes to building schools, building hospitals, offering social services to people who are, in difficult situations. How do you tell them this is evil?
When you talk to government, you talk money. When you talk to the people, you talk about death. Talk money to government, they understand that. So if I'm right and 50% of the deaths are related to alcohol, 50% of healthcare, what's your healthcare budget in Ontario?
More than $50 billion a year.
Yes, so take half of that. Policing in Saskatchewan, I grew up with Russ Morasti, who became the top RCMP officer in F Division. And when he was there, he told me 75% of an RCMP officer's job is looking after intoxicated people. And I asked officers in the communities if that number was correct, and they said that's a minimum number. It's probably 85, 90%. But let's use Russ's number. What's 75% of the police budget?
Police budget in Toronto is over $1 billion, so 75%, $750 million.
And if we solved alcohol, you wouldn't need special needs tutors in the school because you wouldn't have FASD children. Imagine if everybody sobered up, how many people would be on social assistance?
But Harold, we're not going to shut down the LCBO. We're not going to prevent or stop the sale of alcohol in our society. So what's the better option?
Increased prices, reduced availability.
That's a brave politician who would put up the prices on a bottle of wine or a 24 of beer.
Saskatchewan's kind of broke right now. I'm hoping that they will use this as an easy way to raise some revenue. But you don't make money by selling alcohol. We did some very conservative numbers for Saskatchewan, and it looks like they're spending 6 times the amount that they're taking in, paying for the harms from alcohol.
No, I appreciate that, but again, it is a political non-starter to shut down the sale of alcohol. So what are you urging?
Increased prices. One study out of the United States said that a 1% increase in price reduced domestic violence by 3%.
You know a lot, obviously, and you have chronicled it in the book about the impact of intoxication on Indigenous communities. We are about to legalize cannabis, and the government is going to realize revenue from it.
Yeah.
Here, well, certainly in the province of Ontario and across the country. What's your view on that?
Both ways. If people are smoking marijuana and not drinking, great, because they're going to smoke a joint, watch cartoons, and eat munchies. They're not going to get violent and go driving and kill people. It's going to be much better. And I don't think more people are going to begin smoking marijuana once it's legalized. I think people who are doing it now are just going to do it openly. What I worry about are people who mix cannabis and alcohol together. Then you've got people who are blacked out drunk and extremely violent and completely out of control.
Let's do one more excerpt from the book here. If we change our story about alcohol, if we stop accepting it as natural, normal, and necessary, if we stop telling ourselves that alcohol is medicine, that it dissolves grief, maybe we won't have to stand at so many gravesides and mourn so many senseless deaths. Harold, I have to tell you, the story that stays with me from this book more than any other, and you tell a lot of bad stories in this book, is the mother who had a fight with her daughter, who, both of them drunk, I guess, and as a result, kills her daughter, stabs and kills her daughter. And now a grandchild is there, and the grandchild is being raised by the grandmother with the knowledge that the grandmother killed her mother. I mean, if that isn't a recipe for disaster and dysfunction for as far as the eye can see, I don't know what it is. How do you begin to change this story?
No, there's no single answer. There's no easy answer. What I'm trying to do is get everybody involved. The justice system is a huge ship and it's hard to turn, but there are things like transdermal bracelets where we can measure alcohol through the skin, and maybe judges' orders won't be breached as often. That's one part. We've trained the doctors in L'Orange on evidence-based approaches, and there's pharmaceutical interventions that are available.
L'Orange in northern Saskatchewan, where you're from.
Yeah. We came to Toronto and met the experts at Women's College Hospital, and they were lobbying the provincial government of Ontario to pay for naltrexone. The province of Ontario never did add it to their formulary, but we took the letter that they wrote back to Saskatchewan and we sent it to the Saskatchewan government. And as of July last year, the Saskatchewan government is now paying for naltrexone. So we have it available and we're using it, and it's being successful in L'Orange. We're working with the schools. We've worked with the schools to change curriculum, and we've trained teachers on ways to talk to youth about alcohol without preaching to them. Getting everybody involved. We've got the town of L'Orange, the village of Orange, and the Lac L'Orange Indian Band all working together with a community alcohol management plan that looks like it's taking off, that it doesn't need to be babysat anymore, that it's going to grow on its own. The youth on their own in L'Orange marched from the Lac L'Orange Indian Band office through the town to the park downtown on Family Allowance Day in a walk for sobriety, and finished their walk downtown in a park and had a wiener roast in front of the bar and the liquor store, sending a message. And the youth did that on their own. There's things happening. I was told by somebody who does the sound systems for community events that he's seen more sober events than at any time in the last year. Things are changing.
I get
But it takes everybody.
It takes everybody. You're sort of planting a flag in the middle of northern Saskatchewan, which is kind of in the middle of the country, in the hopes that the waves start to go out. But I mean, we've had many discussions on this program about the residential schools situation and the horrors that came from that. That was a made-in-Canada disaster that really did not have alcohol at its root.
No.
So to put all of the travails of Indigenous people over the years and say alcohol is at the root of everything, I mean, can you really go that far?
No. Alcohol is a symptom, not the cause. We've got to balance this a little bit. It isn't a problem that affects all Aboriginal people. 35% of us are completely abstinent. That's twice as many as the Canadian general population of Canada.
35% of
Aboriginal people are completely abstinent, compared to 18% of Canadians.
Okay.
We've got another statistic, whereas 19% of Canadians binge drink, about 25% of Aboriginal people do. So it's the binge drinking, it's the style of drinking, it's that frontier style of drinking that came in. That, and you add trauma to it. So you talked about residential schools. Traumas didn't end with residential schools.
Right.
I was a Crown prosecutor. I handled 1,000 files a year, minimum of 1,000 files a year. Each one of those files documented the trauma. The woman who got beaten up and the 5 kids who watched. Multiply my 1,000 files a year times 5 prosecutors in Laurent, and that's 5,000. Another 5 prosecutors in Meadow Lake, and that's 10,000 files a year. There's only 38,000 people in northern Saskatchewan. Doesn't take very long before the entire population is traumatized multiple times. I'm hoping to find a university who will come in and help us put numbers to that.
Well, I have to tell you, this is a small book, but it packs a mighty punch, and it's a great read. I want to thank you for coming in from Saskatchewan to the province of Ontario to tell us about Firewater, how alcohol is killing my people and yours. Harold R. Johnson. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Stephen.
Miigwech.
The Agenda with Steve Bacon is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario, helping businesses stay on the right side of change with strategic thinking, insightful decisions, and business leadership. Are you on the right side of change? Ask an Ontario CPA.